For the group, I have offices here in Middlesex County and New Brunswick. I also have an office in Union County and Westfield. I'm speaking today from a law firm in Woodbridge. I want to basically take you through what's called the criminal case process. You hear terms on radio, news, on Law and Order about all these different legal terms, and today I'm going to bring you through those terms. But I'm not only going to bring you through those terms, but I'm also going to show you through a hypothetical how the system works. And of course, everyone has a copy of my chart. The chart's here. If anyone wants to, I ask that you all follow along with me. So, the hypothetical we're going to use today is Harry, who's a good friend. He's with his wife in a local bar in Middlesex County, and Gabe, another friend, is in the bar. And Harry is eating, with his wife, everything's going great, and all of a sudden, Gabe and Harry get into some type of disagreement. Well, it escalates. Gabe goes outside, grabs a tire iron from his car, comes back into the restaurant, and assaults Harry. Okay, guys. Now, we're going to walk through the process. Everyone pay attention. Here's what happens. First is the arrest. This is the first stage of the criminal case process. Now, here's where the police have the authority to arrest Gabe. All they have to do is have probable cause to believe that a crime was committed. That actually occurred. Now, usually at this stage, the person is then taken to the police station. He's processed, photographed, and printed. Now, follow along with me. The next stage would be the complaint. Here, the police prepare what's called a complaint. The complaint is a document that explains what the offense is and the charges that the defendant actually is going to have. Usually in the complaint, there is what actually happened, the crime with some small words, and it's usually going to have the next court date and where the defendant is to appear. And a lot of times, bail will be set at this time. Okay. Now, the next stage is the grand jury. Now, follow along, everyone. See what the grand jury stage is? 23 people. What actually happens is the state is now going to get in front of 23 people, and they're going to try to secure what's called an indictment. The prosecutor is going to bring witnesses at the restaurant, and they're going to give sworn testimony in front of these 23 people to what happened. And during the presentation, the prosecutor is, of course, supposed to present what's called exculpatory evidence. And hopefully the prosecutor does that, and he's also going to explain to the 23 people what the elements of the crime are, and he's going to try to explain to them what they actually have to look at in regards to the evidence, so they could either decide to indict, or if they look at some of the elements of the crime, they could do what's called a no bill. And a defense lawyer is not present in the grand jury room. It's only the state and his witnesses. And you need 12 or more grand jurors to vote to obtain an indictment. And the clerk of the grand jury will record that vote.
All right. The prosecutor decides what exculpatory evidence to...
The prosecutor doesn't, but the defense attorney is supposed to, if he has exculpatory evidence, he could give exculpatory evidence to the grand jury, to the prosecutor, and then he should present. And in the actual court rules, it says that the prosecutor has the obligation if you present certain exculpatory evidence. Good question, though. So the next stage is the indictment. Now is when the county prosecutor office prepares a document which actually indicates the essential facts of the crime charged. And it's going to be, the specific New Jersey statute is going to be in that indictment, what the defendant violated, and it's usually going to give dates of when the actual crime occurred. Now, during that time, other things could happen, and I'm going to discuss that as we go on. But you see on the side pretrial intervention or refer to municipal court. I'm going to discuss that shortly. The next stage is what's called the arraignment of the indictment. And basically, this is where the attorney has already received the discovery, which are the police reports and the documents that he would use to assess the case, which is basically the evidence. And you're going to now be, as the attorney, before the judge in Superior Court, and you're going to be, the judge will read the charges to you and your client, and then the defense lawyer is going to say, usually I plead my client not guilty, I received all the discovery, I ask that bail be continued, and I ask for a new court date. He's also going to let the court know that he's received the discovery and acknowledge that he's received the discovery. Now, possibly, if you have a good defense lawyer and the case has elements that aren't as serious, at this stage you can get the case of what's called remanded to municipal court. If you look at the chart, you can see what municipal court is. A lot of people are probably familiar with municipal court. It's the local court. A lot of cases get resolved there. Now, if you have a good lawyer, your lawyer could discuss with the prosecutor some of the weaknesses of the case, and possibly the case could be remanded to municipal court, and then your lawyer could represent the client in municipal court. We call that a remand. And then the other scenario is, at this time, you could possibly get PTI, which is called pretrial intervention. That's for matters that aren't as serious, where the client has no prior criminal history, where it's not a violent crime. Now, this case would not be a PTI type of case. And what it is you get, PTI is like an unsupervised probation. It's usually for 1 to 3 years. And when the whatever the time frame is finished, then it's like the case never happened. This case would not go that way because Gabe had used a weapon, and it would trigger what's called the 85%, which is the No Early Release Act, and he would have to serve a minimum time in jail because he used a weapon. Unless you have a good lawyer and he makes certain arguments, maybe you could avoid the No Early Release Act. I had a fact pattern very similar to this, and we ended up getting PTI. It wasn't in Middlesex County, it was in a different county, but we ended up getting PTI. And the next step would be what's called the status conference. This is a stage where, if the case is not remanded to municipal court and the client did not get PTI, this is a stage where the state has already made a plea offer to the defense, and now the state and the defense are discussing the weaknesses of the case. There's negotiations going on, whether the case is going to be a probation case, whether it's going to be a jail case, whether what are the components of the case. And if the defendant does not want to plead guilty at this time, we're going to go to the next stage. And that stage is basically trial. Now, trial, of course, people understand what that is, but that's after all motions have been exhausted, different motions to suppress, different arguments, alibi, defenses, things of that nature, and now discovery is complete. Either you go to trial right then and there, or you decide to take a plea. And if you follow along, it goes to arraignment, and then the next step would see plea negotiations. One would plead guilty or sentencing, or you go to trial. And at trial, the case basically would be, you bring, of course, your side of the story. The state brings their side of the story. At the end of the trial, the judge is going to decide the specific charges. And of course, I'm sorry, let me take that back. The judge reads the specific charges of the elements of the crime, and then a jury is going to find them either not guilty or guilty. And if a jury can't find a certain element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, then the jury is going to find the defendant not guilty. If anyone has any questions regarding the criminal stage process, they could always call my office. I have a website, and it has useful information on criminal law, DWI, municipal court. I also have a Twitter account. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, LawEBM Morrell. It's actually www.twitter.com/LawEBMMorrell. So anybody who's interested in following any information on criminal law, information about New Jersey, feel free. And that's basically what I do. And I fight for people throughout the state of New Jersey. And I appreciate all your business, all your challenge, and I really enjoy this type of work.
So you
Thanks.
say